Hey there everyone, Audio Knight aka Starlancer here, and welcome to another tutorial on how to create your very own custom moon for Lethal Company, updated for V60. This tutorial will not cover the basics of Unity, so I recommend that you familiarize yourself with Unity before proceeding with this tutorial. Let's start with the prerequisites, all of which will be linked in the description below. Git, which is needed for Unity's package manager to add packages from a Git repository. .NET 8.0, a framework provided by Microsoft which is needed for the patcher we'll be using to extract files from Lethal Company into our Unity project. Unity Editor version 2022.3.9F1, which is the exact version that Lethal Company was built in. Go to unity.com/download and download the Unity Hub application. Once you've completed the basic setup, you'll need to visit the Unity archive and download version 2022.3.9F1. For this tutorial, I'll be using the mod manager R2Modman, available for download from the Thunderstore mod hosting website. Download this manually, do not click Install with Mod Manager. Upon opening R2Modman, you'll be greeted with a profile selection screen. Create a new one and title it simply Tutorial Profile. Select the profile and go to the Online tab. Search for Lethal Level Loader by IAmBatby and download it with its dependencies. From here on, I'll be referring to it as LLL. Go to the Installed tab and make sure the following dependencies have been installed alongside LLL: HookGenPatcher, LethalLib, LethalMod DataLib, Fix Plugin Types Serialization, and Bepinex Pack. Click on Start Modded in the upper left corner of R2Modman. We need to run the game once in order for HookGenPatcher to generate its files. Once you get to the main menu, simply exit the game. Now, let's move on to Unity. Open up Unity Hub, and in the Project tabs, click New Project. Select the High Definition 3D Core template. Name the project whatever you'd like. I'm going to call it LC Tutorial Project. Set the location where your project will be created. Before creating the project, make sure the drive you wish to use is not in the exFAT format, as this will prevent Unity from being able to import packages via a Git URL. The default file system for modern Windows operating systems is NTFS, but double check the format if you're installing Unity on a secondary drive. The time it takes for Unity to create and open your project will vary depending on your system specs. I suggest you take this time to go and get yourself a snack, rehydrate, and get comfortable for the rest of the tutorial. Once your project is open, close the HDRP wizard and remove the README assets. On the toolbar, go to Window and click on Package Manager. The package we'll be adding is the Unity Project Patcher created by Nomnom. Nomnom has provided instructions on how to install the patcher, but I'll walk you through it. A link to this page can be found in the description below. We already have the main prerequisites of Git, .NET 8.0, and Unity version 2022.3.9F1. First, we need to install the Unity Project Patcher core package. Copy the URL provided in step 4. In the Package Manager, click the plus in the top left corner and click Add Package from Git URL. Paste the URL we just copied and click Add. Next, copy the URL in the section Installing this game wrapper and repeat the package installation. Once that's finished, close out of the Package Manager. On the toolbar, go to Tools, Unity Project Patcher, Open Window. Select the UP Patcher User Settings asset in your root folder. In the Game Folder Path field, browse to the folder containing your Lethal Company executable. Click Run Patcher. Read the windows that pop up, and proceed. Nomnom has estimated that a fresh patch will take roughly 5 to 10 minutes, but much like Unity itself, this will vary depending on your system specs. The editor will also restart multiple times throughout the process. Click OK when it asks to install packages, and Yes when it asks if you want to enable backends. Once the project has been patched successfully, in the UP Patcher window, click Install Bepinex. Back in R2Modman, go to Settings and click Browse Profile folder. Go to Bepinex, Plugins, and copy all of the folders into the Plugins folder located under Lethal Company and Mods inside your Unity project. This will give us access to the scriptable objects we need from LLL, as well as the ability to playtest our moon inside the Unity editor. For this tutorial, we're going to be grabbing game objects from a vanilla moon to speed up our process. Go to Lethal Company, Game, Scenes, and open up Level 2 Assurance. Feel free to pause here, explore the scene, and proceed when ready. Highlight all of the game objects in the hierarchy, right-click, and copy. Then go to File, click New Scene, and create an empty scene. Right-click in the hierarchy and paste all of Assurance's assets into your scene. Important: do not move the position of the player ship navmesh under Environment Navmesh Colliders. The ship lands in a fixed position, and where player ship navmesh is now is your reference point for where that landing position is. Again, do not move it. In your assets, go to the mods folder and create a new folder with the name of your mod. The name is up to you, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll name it Tutorial Mod. Inside Tutorial Mod, create a folder named Scenes. Save your scene in the folder we just created. Accordingly, I'll name mine Tutorial Scene. Much like in any creative endeavor, save your work often. I cannot stress this enough. Next, we're going to strip the hierarchy of everything that is unnecessary to the basic functioning of a moon. But first, let's organize a bit. At the top right of your hierarchy, switch to alphabetical sorting if it's not already. Under Environment, select Doorframe 1, Fire Exit Door Container, Plane, and both Steel Door Fakes. Move them into the Teleport's game object. Right-click Entrance Teleport A and create Empty. Name it Main Entrance. Move Main Entrance into the root of the Teleport's game object, and then move Entrance Teleport A, Doorframe 1, the Plane, and both Steel Door Fakes inside of it. Under Scan Nodes, select Scan Node and place it into Main Entrance, as this particular scan node refers to the main entrance itself. Under Map and Spawn Blockers, select Spawn Blocker and place it into Main Entrance as well. This invisible object prevents enemies from spawning too close to the entrances to the interior. You may want to bring the Spawn Blocker closer to your entrance teleport, but position it however it suits your needs. Quick tip: if you hold Shift and Control, you can drag objects around your scene and they'll snap to the surface nearest your cursor. Move Entrance Teleport B and Spawn Blocker 1 into the Fire Exit Door container. Both entrance teleports can now be easily moved around without fear of mistakenly moving a single object instead of the whole group. One additional setup step: go to Environment, Lighting, Bright Day, Sun, Sun Anim Container, Sky and Fog Global Volume, and enable the Fog component. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and hide the fog from the editor. Now, remove the following: Anomaly Spawn Zones, Bounds Walls, Cutscenes, Grid 001, Hanging Light 13. Under Lighting, remove Misc. Map. Under Navmesh Colliders, remove Modifiers. Under Off Mesh Links, remove everything except for the ship ladders. Nav Obstacles. Both particle systems. Props. Under Reverb Triggers, remove Cube, Cube 1, 3, 15, 16, and 27. Test. Test Room. Under Nodes and Points and Outside AI Points, remove all outside nodes but the first. Out of Bounds Terrain, Static Lighting Sky. Under Systems Audio, remove Steam Audio Static Mesh, Foliage Low Detail, and Navmesh. Create a folder named Prefabs. Under Interactables, select both ladders and drag them into that folder to create prefabs, then delete the Interactables object. The ladder objects don't have associated prefabs in the imported assets, so it's nice to have them on hand for future use. You can also remove story logs, as the creation of logs is beyond the scope of this tutorial. Under Systems Audio, there's an object group called High and Low Altitude BG. This allows for different ambience to play depending on the current altitude of the player. You can remove this if you'd like. On your screen, you may have a lot of floating blue in your scene. If this isn't showing up for you, make sure your gizmos are visible, and Show Navmesh under AI Navigation is enabled. This blue is the baked navmesh, and we can clear it by clicking on Environment and selecting Clear under Navmesh Surface. We'll rebake the navmesh later. Save. Let's hide the reverb triggers. This way they won't be impairing our vision as we move around our scene. Next, we'll add a terrain. Right-click Environment, 3D Object, Terrain. Change the position of the terrain to -512, -10, -512. This will center it on our ship and slightly below it. I want to reiterate once more, do not move the position of the player's ship nav mesh. To make it less harsh on our eyes, go to Paint Terrain, Paint Texture, Edit Terrain Layers, Add Layer, and we'll just use Cement Ground for this tutorial. Set the layer of the terrain to Room. Objects must be on the Room layer to be visible on the ship's map. Set the tag of the terrain to one of the material name tags like gravel, grass, or snow. This will determine the noise that footsteps produce. Under Terrain Settings, tick Draw Instanced. This is necessary to prevent crashes upon landing on a moon. At the bottom of the terrain settings, click on Rendering Layer Mask, and enable the following layers: 0, 2, 8, 9, and 10. This will allow for quicksand and other decals to be visible. Any actual terrain customization is beyond the scope of this tutorial. Save. Now I'll give a quick rundown on the objects we've kept. Lighting contains our sun and fog elements, as well as other objects that come into play based on weather, which I won't be going into for this tutorial. Lights container and map container are used behind the scenes for other functions. NavMesh colliders affect NavMesh in different ways. The off-mesh links provide ways for the AI to move from one NavMesh section to another, while the colliders physically block navigation. Out of Bounds has a trigger that, should a player glitch through or otherwise fall under the map, that player will be reset back on the ship. Reverb triggers are named somewhat deceptively, as they control quite a few things besides reverb. They mark the space inside the ship for the collection of scrap, enable and disable the weather effects for the player, change audio clips, and even set up the lighting for the interior. Within each of the remaining reverb triggers, check the audio changes to see if any of the audio sources are labeled as None or Missing. If one is None or Missing, right-click Delete Array Element. Alternatively, if all of the audio sources within an audio changes array are none or missing, simply set the list size to 0 and hit enter. If these elements are assigned an audio source that is none or missing, it will cause errors. You can, of course, add your own audio changes later. The remaining scan node marks the ship's position. Teleports are the entrances to the interior. The mold attraction point under MISC is needed for vein shrouds to spawn. Outside AI points dictate where exterior enemies can spawn, as well as providing them with points to patrol to and from. The number needed depends on your moon size, but I generally recommend at least 50 to 70. Note that it is the tag outside AI node that actually provides functionality. Nothing else really matters. Diegetic background, Music 1, Music 2, and the Audio Reverb presets are utilized by Lethal Company itself and should not be removed. Under Audio Reverb presets outside ship ambience, remove elements 1 and 2 from audio changes for the same reasons as before. The item ship anim container dictates where your item dropship will land after purchasing items from the store. Go ahead and lower this so that the bottom of the ship is just touching the ground. Level generation contains our interior generation objects. The dungeon generator generates the interior, while the level generation route determines where the generation starts. Inside the dungeon generator runtime dungeon component, remove the level 1 flow from the dungeon flow field. Otherwise, all of the factory interior's assets will be bundled with your mod, unnecessarily bloating your file size. Occlusion areas allow for high-quality occlusion data to be baked into the scene, which will benefit performance for the players. Set them up such that they encompass your expected playable area. Let's go ahead and move our entrances closer to our ship. Next, we'll make our AI nodes visible in the editor, duplicate them, and bake our nav mesh so that our enemies can spawn and behave normally. Add a mesh filter, and make it a sphere. Add a mesh renderer, and select Test Trigger Red as its material. Snap it to the surface, and set the layer to Scan Node. This won't actually make them scannable, but now they won't be visible to the player in-game. Now, duplicate it with Ctrl D and spread them around the ship and entrances. It doesn't have to be pretty, this is just for testing purposes. Select Environment, and click Bake under NavMesh Surface. Our entire terrain should turn blue. The different NavMesh areas can be adjusted by NavMesh modifiers, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. Let's save our eyes and hide the NavMesh for now. The last step before we set up the routing and level values is to bake the occlusion. This won't really do anything for our test moon, but it's useful information to have. Go to Window, Rendering, Occlusion Culling. In the bottom right, click Bake. You won't see anything change, but this will help with performance for heavily customized moons. Save. In your tutorial mod, right-click, Create, ScriptableObjects, Level, and we'll call this Tutorial Level. Right-click, Create, LLL Loader, ExtendedMod. Leave its name as default. Right-click, Create, LLL Loader, Extended Content, ExtendedLevel. Name it Tutorial Extended. As you can see, LLL has many scriptable objects, but I'm only focusing on the ones necessary for moon creation. In Tutorial Extended, you can set the route price and terminal information for your moon, hide or lock it from routing, and other features that may or may not still be in experimental stages, such as ship landing and takeoff animation replacement, random scene selection upon landing, and overriding the size of dust storms and foggy weather volumes. LLL features an automatic risk level designation, but you can tick Override Dynamic Risk Level Assignment, and whatever you set in the selectable level will take precedence. For fun, I'll go ahead and enable this. At the bottom is an option for automatically generating config options, and I recommend leaving this enabled so that players can access the values of your moon through LLL's config and adjust it to their liking. Now, let's drag Tutorial Level into the selectable level field. In ExtendedMod, you can set the name of your mod as a whole and provide your mod author name. This can be utilized by LLL to consolidate your mod information if you have multiple mods. I'll call it Tutorial Mod. And my name, while technically Audio Knight, is usually Starlancer in the LC modding community. Add Tutorial Extended to the Extended Levels category. Go ahead and save your project. Now to the meat and potatoes of the moon, the selectable level. This contains all of the information for the moon, from name and description to what enemies and scrap can be found. Let's go to Lethal Company, Game, ScriptableObjects, SelectableLevel, and copy Assurance Level into our Tutorial Mod folder. This way, we have a reference to how a vanilla moon is set up. A few things I recommend just copying over from our reference are the random weathers, dungeon flow types, spawnable map objects, spawnable outside objects, and enemy spawn curves. Of course, you can adjust these later, but it's nice to have a starting point. For scrap settings, I've never really found the value settings to do much, but min and max amount of scrap should be adjusted based on what type of scrap can spawn on your moon and how valuable you want your moon to be. Before we fill in all of the objects, scrap, and enemies, we're going to create some stripped duplicates of vanilla assets. This will help reduce the file size of our asset bundles. In your mod folder, create a folder called Blank References. Go to Lethal Company, Game, ScriptableObjects, and select the following folders: Enemy Type, Item, Level Ambience Library, and Spawnable Outside Object. Copy these folders into the Blank References folder. Create 3 empty prefabs and name them Landmine, Turret Container, and Spike Roof Trap Hazard. In each folder, go through and remove any assets that are referenced by the scriptable object, such as prefabs and audio clips. For anything that has a list, such as the Level Ambience Library assets, you can simply set the list size to 0 to clear it. When stripping item assets, the only thing that must remain is the item name. If the item name is not present, LLL will not swap the asset, and you will receive errors on your moon and be unable to land. For testing purposes, I'm just going to clear out the first 3, and we'll use those in our selectable level. If you see a warning related to the object name not matching the asset file name, ignore it. LLL will see the names of our blank assets and swap in the actual game assets at runtime, thus allowing us to not waste space on including the game's own files. Additionally, you must have unique blank references for each moon. Using one blank reference in multiple locations will cause errors. For example, if you plan to bundle multiple moons together, like I have, you need to have a set of blank references for each moon. If you want to allow the same enemy to spawn both inside and outside, not only will you need to add Starlancer AI Fix as a dependency for your moon, but both references will need to be unique. Back in the tutorial level asset, before doing anything else, we need to swap out some of what we copied from Assurance with our blank references. In our dungeon flow types, element 2, swap out the level 1 type ambience mineshaft for our blank asset. Do the same for the map objects and outside objects. Quick tip: if you want to fully expand an array with one click, Hold Alt when you click the dropdown. Up top, the planet prefab needs to be Moon 1, 2, or 3. Moon 1 is the desert moon, Moon 2 is the lush forest moon, and Moon 3 is the snowy moon. Pick whichever you like, I'll just use Moon 1. For our scene name, it must match our actual scene name exactly. So here, I'll put in Tutorial Scene. Leave the level ID alone, it'll be automatically updated behind the scenes. Planet name? Tut0, because why not? Description? This is the description. Risk level? Learning. Time to arrive, as far as I understand, is the time it takes from routing to the moon to being able to actually land on the moon. I'll just set this to 3. Don't mess with the time settings. Let's set the factory size multiplier to 1. Mold settings seem to be the same in each vanilla selectable level, so just leave that as it is. Populate the scrap and enemy lists however you'd like. Rarity determines the likelihood that the item or entity will spawn, higher values meaning more common. Level ambience libraries contain the various sounds that you'll randomly hear throughout the day, from twig snapping to that really creepy laugh. Just make sure you use one of our blank references. Level enemy values dictate how many enemies can be present at one time from each spawn list. Each enemy has its own power count, so either research them or take inspiration from vanilla moons. If you want your level to include footprints, you'll need to pop over to one of the snowy moon scenes and copy snow footprints from systems into your scene. Make sure level include snow footprints is enabled and your terrain is tagged as snow. I'm not sure if any other tag supports footprints, but feel free to experiment. Now that all of that is set up, let's build the bundles and test. In the bottom right of the screen, you should see a name and type field for asset bundles. If you can't see these, click on Asset Labels. Select your ExtendedMod, name the asset bundle Tutorial Moon, and hit Enter. Make the extension Lethal Bundle and hit Enter. Go into your scenes, select the tutorial scene, name the asset bundle Tutorial Moon Scene, and hit Enter. Select Lethal Bundle as the extension. In the Mods plugin folder, create a new folder called Asset Bundles. Right-click the folder and click Copy Path. Go to Window, Asset Bundle Browser. Ignore the Configuration tab for now. Go to Build and paste the path you copied into the Output Path field and click Build. The time this takes will vary depending on the size of your bundle and your system specs. Once that finishes, let's go to the scene Init Scene Launch Options and press Play. If nothing happens, make sure Unity swapped over to the Game tab. Click through the setup and select LAN. Start a lobby. Go to the terminal and type moons. If you've been following along correctly, you should see your moon in the list. If not, go back and check your ExtendedMod, ExtendedLevel, and SelectableLevel assets for any problems. Let's visit. And by the way, I just want to say it's ridiculously awesome that we're able to playtest in the Unity editor. Thank you so much, Nomnom. As you can see, we are on our little tutorial moon. We have the main entrance, and we can even go inside and explore the interior. Scrap works as it should. You might notice some occasional buffering of the shaders. That's to be expected. Apparatus effects work as normal. And enemies work as normal. Note that some shaders didn't quite rip correctly. That's just a problem with the asset ripper. Nothing to worry about. I just want to verify that other things have been spawning. It looks like we have some hoarder bugs in our level, so let's go and find them. As you can see, turrets are working. There's our little loot bug friend. Alright, let's go ahead and get out of this. Now that you have a working foundation for your custom moon, you can customize to your heart's content. Adjust the enemies, the scrap, the environment, the ambience, truly endless possibilities. Before we end, let's briefly talk about optimization. Any textures you bring into Unity, lower their maximum size in the import settings. Lethal Company's stylization makes high amounts of detail less important, so lower the resolution as much as you can while still being happy about the appearance. IAmBatby suggests the following settings for extreme performance on textures. If so desired, you can use this as a starting point and then raise the resolution of important textures until you're satisfied. Max size 512, resize algorithm Mitchell, format automatic, compression low quality, use crunch compression, compressor quality 50. When you open the Asset Bundle browser, the Configure tab will show you what bundles will be created or updated. Click on a bundle and you can view all of the assets that will be imported into that bundle. You can sort the assets by size, but keep in mind that the size listed is pre-import settings, and as such, may not be 100% accurate. The important thing to pay attention to is what vanilla assets are being bundled. If you notice entire enemies or interior dungeon flows being bundled, you have a stray reference in your scene or one of your scriptable objects that needs to be removed or replaced with a blank. In my experience, this has been one of the biggest offenders for bloated file sizes. And with that, we've reached the end of the tutorial. The sky's the limit when it comes to making custom moons, but I hope I've given you a solid foundation to start from. If you need help with further customization or just want to share your work, hop onto the Lethal Company Modding Discord server and check out the development channels. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave a like and comment down below. Links to all the resources mentioned in the tutorial can be found in the description, as well as a link to my own collection of mods. Take care, and happy modding.